Good afternoon, Tony Dottino with you on Friday, August the 8th, and the days are going by too fast. I wish somebody would just figure out how to slow down the calendar. But I wanted to do a little bit of a demonstration today of things that people can do to really deal with their cognitive fitness. There's more and more science and more research that's coming out and saying there are things that we can be more proactive about that help us have some level of control over cognitive fitness. And so we'll start with aerobic activity. So getting out now, I was doing my run this morning. I run 3 days a week, so I'm actively involved in running. So I've got my run shirt on, and I'm running by, and I come by a gentleman that comes by me the other way walking, and he says, hey, he looks at me, and he figures I'm close to his age. He says, I just finished having a heart replacement and the heart stents put in. Walking will get you 90% of what running will do, and so you don't have to sweat so much. It was 80 degrees, and I'm dripping sweat on my return to home, and he's giving me some advice on the importance of at least walking and how walking is a benefit to you as much as running. And I got it and learned, and I said to him, but what pace of walking? And he tries to walk at 16-minute miles on his walking pace, which I think would be excellent. So physical aerobic activity of some sort, I think, is excellent. And it was great to see somebody out on the street, unfortunately, who's just had some heart stents put in, that's out there walking at 80 degrees at 8:30 a.m. this morning. So what are you doing to get yourself into some form of aerobic activity, be it walking, climbing up steps, doing sit-ups even. I mean, anything to get your oxygen levels going in your brain. The second thing you want to do is, here's a 5-pounder, you want to do some anaerobic activities. You know, what can you do that at least exercises your muscles? And 5-pound dumbbells will do some work for you. A 3-pound dumbbell, it doesn't matter. What is it you're doing that brings some level of physical fitness to your muscle groups? And what can you do to do some squats that help your thighs? What are you doing for your calves? What might you do to help to build a little strength in your ankles? Certainly here in your shoulders and what's going on in your neck muscles. So I'm into every 3 day or every 3 times a week, every other day, 3 times a week, I'm doing some form of anaerobic activity so that I'm engaged in keeping my muscles in tone as I'm getting older so I can run, so I can do the fundamentals of what I need to do in my everyday life. The third thing I do, and we keep hearing about the importance of even staying home and using things that are in your house, and doing stretch bands. So what is it you do that allows you to have some flexibility in your muscles with flex bands or stretch bands? So what can you do? God, there's so many stores now that you go to, and just buy fundamental stretch bands and use them to stretch. I put them around my ankles and use them for my walking. Anything that's giving your muscles a little bit of a tension that helps you to maintain its flexibility and their mobility of keeping you active, keeping you engaged, and keeping you involved. Now, what else can we do? Well, there is so much coming out now on nutrition, right? This is an interesting, how to protect and preserve your brain from stroke. So what are some of the things that you can do that help you protect your brain from a stroke? And what foods might you eat? So I'm constantly reading a variety of magazines to say, okay, so what is something that you can do? What are the things that you can be doing to take control over different activities and aspects of your life that can help not just your longevity, but your mentalness. Look, I want to live longer, but I also want to be cognitively cognitively involved and playing along with people. We've had a revolution in stroke care, is what this goes on, and what they're talking about is blood pressure, your blood pressure. When it comes to stroke, a risk factor that stands out is high blood pressure. To prevent plaque development and the risk of stroke in the heart, the body likes systolic blood pressure as low as it can get. The data is compelling. We ought to know he led the SPRINT trial, which randomly assigned people with hypertension to aim for a blood pressure between 140 or 120, and get it below those levels. The results, high and elevated blood pressure. Analyzed 7 trials looking at blood pressure and its impact on hearts and strokes. So what are we doing to manage our blood pressure? And I know sometimes people feel, oh, gee, there's nothing I can do. My blood pressure is my blood pressure. But that is not always the case. So what are we doing in terms of studying our nutritional habits, managing our blood pressure? And God, the easiest one I see is salt. Now we're talking about what your intake is and what your proteins are, what your junk foods are, your sugars, your salts. What are you doing to manage your salt levels, your sugar levels, and your nutritional habits? Then we can keep on moving along, and I love this magazine, Science Focus magazine. Well, what are the things you can read? So what are some of the studies that they publish in here that are just so important? And so reading a lot of different articles and a lot of different magazines. Let me just see that on the second one here that I wanted to refer to. Harvard puts out a guide to cognitive fitness. What are the elements? And certainly they talk about nutrition, they talk about exercise, they talk about your stress levels. What about mental challenges and exercises you can do for your brain? So reading, interesting article, how to get more confidence. What if you don't have an Oscar at home or you can't remember the last time you felt confident? No problem. Tap into the winner effect to start building confidence from scratch, and here's how you can do it. First of all, act like you're confident. You know, and that's not easy to do. Well, I'm going to just put on a show, and then our brain says to us, well, gee, are we being real? But you want to reframe and start seeing yourself in a winning position. And the thing that they talked about here, I thought was something I believed in and have followed from my years of consulting with hospital workers, is build on small successes. Make sure you can get yourself to win at something. And then build on something a little bit bigger than that. And build on something a little bigger than that. So start with small wins. And most people are like, gee, I want a big win. I want to get right to the top, and I want to get there real quick. The science is going to continue to tell you, you know what, work on small wins and build them up. Get something that you feel good about, that you've accomplished, and it doesn't need to be a major thing. You talk about house chores. How many times I've read articles on house chores? Clean up one area of a spot and just know, and you look at that, man, I was able to do something. I cleaned up that area. And let that snowball and build into bigger and bigger wins for you. And then I talked about stress. My goodness, we just watch the news for 15 minutes this day and age. We can all go through a stress attack. And so how do we get ourselves calmed down, take a deep breath, and we talk about meditation. How do we just, you know, I stare out at these trees in the back. I've got a pond of trees, and I look at the gators sometimes swimming across the pond, or see what birds are out there, listen to the sounds of nature, or what the birds are chirping, or who's, you know, what's following who, and who's fishing in the pond, and what birds are standing on the edge, and how many gators do we have. It just takes me away from the stresses of the day and the news. And I do have a practice of not watching any news after 6 o'clock at night anymore. And so, and then I don't put it on first thing in the morning. Oh, wake up and let's get to the news. I'm also learning not to watch Yankee games late at night, because those can stress me out as well. Being a big Yankee fan for my whole life, their pitching staff is not exactly mowing batters down. So how do we keep ourselves from getting into those stressful situations that cause our blood pressures to go up, which we already talked about is not a good thing for us? And how do we maintain some level of physical fitness, maybe some minor weightlifting, maybe a bit of a walk after dinner, and maintain all good cardiovascular systems. And that is another week of Live with Tony's. Hard to believe when I woke up today. Today was Friday. I had to remind myself and look at the calendar and realize it is Friday, and it's already August the 8th. We're through our first week of August, and we're heading into schools, getting back into sessions, and Labor Day planning, and summer about poofed and gone. So hang in there with me. We'll get there, and we, of course, have our Memory Championship coming up on August the 23rd at Full Sail, and we're working on the elements and putting together another great event. We'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend.